Hey, welcome back to another segment on the Educational AD Podcast. This is our weekly series with Dr. Mekia Troy, Certified Master Athletic Administrator from Creekside High School in Georgia. We'll be right back with Dr. Troy, but we want to give a shout out to our partners, the Florida Coaches Coalition, Vital Signs Wall of Fame, We Coach, and the Global Community of Women in High School Sports. You've heard me say before, these are great organizations. You should have them on you as part of your network. And now, don't hit that fast forward button. Stay with us for the next 3 minutes as we give our sponsors their shout out. Here we go. We want to say thanks to Gipper for their support of the podcast. Go to Gipper.com. Their team is going to help you create world-class marketing content for your school's social media channel. Celebrate your athletes and promote your teams. Gipper's used by over 3,000 athletic programs across the country. It's so easy, even I can do it. That's Gipper.com. We also want to say thanks to VitalSignsWallOfFame.com. Go to their website and check out their interactive touchscreen video consoles. It's a great way to showcase your school record boards, your school's Hall of Fame, or to just celebrate your school's diverse history and your proudest moments. Mention this podcast, you'll get a nice discount. That's VitalSignsWallOfFame.com. We also want to say thanks to Huddle. Go to Huddle.com and change the way you see the game. As a football coach, I used Huddle for years, and it was just fantastic. But when I became an athletic director, I wanted to make sure our school was a Huddle school. And our coaches just loved the tools that Huddle provided that allowed them to coach our kids at the highest level. Go to Huddle.com. See why we believe in sports and teams believe in Huddle. Join the 8 million users. Find out how to turn your school into a Huddle school. We also want to say thanks to Sideline Interactive indoor score tables and video boards. Go to sidelineinteractive.com, schedule a live web demo, and see their scoreboards and their score tables in action. Their products not only generate income for your department, but they also create the ultimate game day experience for your student athletes. That's sidelineinteractive.com. We want to thank Hometown Ticketing for their support. Hometown Ticketing is the leading digital ticketing provider to schools and colleges. It's digital ticketing that offers more support, more security, more customization. Go to hometownticketing.com to get started. We want to thank Snap Mobile for their support. Go to snapraise.com. That's the website, snapraise.com. Check out their entire suite of platforms designed to help you do your job better. You've got Snap Store, Snap Manage, Snap Connect, and hands down the best fundraising platform, Snap Raise. You can find it all at snapraise.com. We also want to say thanks to Home Campus, the exclusive high school state association and student athlete management platform for us. It's also your one-stop platform for scheduling, student athlete clearance and eligibility, coaches clearance, and a whole lot more. Go to homecampus.com to find out how they can start helping you. That's homecampus.com. And we want to thank Athletic Surveys by LifeTrack. Athletic surveys are an easy way for you to collect comprehensive data that allows you to evaluate and improve your entire program. Athletic directors already hear from the complainers, the 2% that want to gripe about everything. Athletic surveys will connect you with the 2%, but they'll also connect you with the 98% that supports your program. That's a tremendously valuable tool to have when you're talking to a parent, your school board, or your principal. Go to athleticsurveys.com. Let them help you take the pulse of your parents and your student athletes. That's athleticsurveys.com. Welcome back, everyone, to the Educational AD Podcast and our new weekly series featuring a good friend, Dr. Mekia Troy. Dr. Troy is a certified master athletic administrator. She's the director of athletics for Creekside High School in Georgia, just one of the top programs in the state. She's also a member of the NIAAA National Teaching Faculty. And every week, she sits down with us to share an observation, a perspective as a longtime successful athletic director. So, Dr. Troy, this is episode number 2. What do you have for our listeners this week?
Thank you, Jake. Appreciate it. Well, when I was young, I grew up watching late night infomercials. That was one of my things. I especially like the ones about the home appliances, the ones where they say, set it and forget it. I just thought that was the greatest. It's crazy. Now that I'm older, I don't even buy those things, but I wanted it all back then. Unfortunately, that set it and forget it perspective can be applied to expectations. And as athletic administrators, sometimes it's easy to set an expectation early on, particularly in maybe our fall meeting. You're opening up, everybody's coming back, it's back to school, and you set expectations, and then you forget it until or unless something goes wrong. A lot of times those expectations are rarely revisited unless there is some type of problem. And that's a mistake that I've made too, where I've maybe set an expectation early on. We make sure in the opening meeting we go through handbooks and policies and bylaws. But then we as athletic administrators deal with those things a lot more regularly than anybody else does. So whilst coaches and parents, student athletes have gone on about, their athletics seasons, they aren't thinking about those things the way we may be because we deal with them on a regular basis. So it's important that as we set our expectations for dealing with those policies and procedures that are set forth by our school districts, the state associations, that we are following back up to inspect what we expect and making sure that our coaches understand clearly what it is that we need from them. Clearly communicating our expectations and following up to ensure that it's understood could save a whole lot of headache just by being clear as what it is that you want to get. We can't assume that everybody's going to get it just because you said it and you have the title of the athletic director. You really got to follow up and make sure they have an understanding of what it is that you're speaking of. We don't want to assume that just because we shared a policy or a bylaw that sounded really important and urgent to us, that someone else is going to understand it and take it as seriously as maybe we do on the surface. There's a time where we might come forth in that initial meeting and share that information, and then we never say anything again. And when a problem arises and we have to address the coaches, it's not fair for us then to be upset that they didn't respond in the way that we thought they should, based on the consequences that now are being applied for someone violating a particular rule or policy. It's our job to make sure it's plain for them and they have an understanding of what it is they're supposed to do. And many of us were former teachers. Some may still be currently teachers or administrators that are evaluating teachers. And in that role, we understand that it's important that you explain your instructions in a classroom setting. And there's a lot of times that whether you like it or not, you have to repeat those instructions. But then you ask yourself, well, were the instructions clearly presented? Maybe there's the continual repetition because it wasn't explained properly in the beginning. Maybe as the leader of the group, you didn't check for understanding. And maybe you should have, to make sure that before everyone left, they knew exactly what should be done and what your expectations were. Did you clarify things to make sure everyone knew what was expected of them before they were given the task? And as athletic directors, we can take those same strategies and apply to how we're presenting information to our coaches, our student athletes, and our parents, just so they know what our expectations are. And maybe that'll save some of the issues that we run into down the line when someone doesn't understand that a bylaw policy was violated, and now there are consequences that we have to deal with. So it's unfair for us to just assume that people got it just because we said it. We have to keep in mind that, again, we are the ones that are dealing with a lot of these things more so on a regular basis than others. There may be common interpretations of a particular bylaw from your state association that you really know and grasp and understand, and someone else doesn't. So it is our expectation, our responsibility to make sure that those expectations are clear when we're dealing with the coaches, the student athletes, or their parents. So that responsibility does fall on us in those situations. Recently had an issue where a student athlete received some consequences for violating a policy. And I instructed the coach to make sure that he spoke with the student athlete and addressed the situation. And I followed up, or so I thought, more than once with the coach to make sure that the situation was handled and ask how the student athlete was handling the consequences that were given to him. All seemed well. So I basically set it and forget it. It wasn't until 3 months later that I heard from the student athlete's parent that did not know at all what was going on or have an understanding of the consequences that their child was having to deal with. And at this point, now I'm dealing with an upset parent because expectations weren't clearly given for what the coach should have done in handling the particular situation. So I had to own that as an athletic administrator to say, you know what, my expectations could have been more clear so that I knew that it was handled properly early on. So we're not dealing with this 3 months later and an upset family at this point. So instead of assuming that a veteran coach was going to know what I expected, I needed to make sure, regardless of experience, that the coach knew exactly what I wanted, followed up to make sure that they handled those steps, and then provided myself for whatever follow-up conversation was needed for the student athlete or for their families initially, so that we wouldn't have to go back later on and deal with, the situation that should have passed along 3 months later. So again, we can't assume that even our veteran coaches know exactly what we want. We might have worked with them for a long time, but things change, people forget things. And again, we as athletic directors often deal with policies, procedures, and bylaws a lot more frequently than even they do. So we want to make sure that our expectations are clear. We are checking to make sure they understand what it is that we want. And if necessary, repeat yourself. It doesn't mean that they weren't listening, but you want to make sure they get it. So repeat yourself as needed, but do not set it and forget it.
I think I actually remember that infomercial from back in the day. Great visual, great auditory cue too. And another one, it's just so important. We've got that state manual on our desk or the app on our phone if you're, a little bit younger than me. And we get those emails from the state or from the conference or whatever we're doing. And if we're not sharing that information and how it applies, to a coach, so they can share it with the student athlete. And again, you talk about, parent meetings and things like that. Now it's a challenge to just get the parents to the meeting. So how do you disseminate that information? You never told me this. Well, here's your signature on the online form that said you read the memo. But yeah, again, just I think for me, the bottom line of this particular nugget is just, communication, communication with coaches, with kids, with parents. Just very, very good stuff. Spot on for any athletic director. Mekia, once again, we appreciate you spending time with us. We know it's an incredibly busy time of year. One of our listeners wanted to reach out and connect or just pick your brain a little bit. What's the best way that they can get a hold of you?
Great. Very active on social media at Dr. Troy Me, DrTroyme. You can find me there. And additionally, email, it could be the drtroyme@gmail.com or TROYM, troym@fultonschools.org. Either way, I'd be happy to be a resource for anyone.
Okay. And again, for our NIAAA members, Mekia's information is on the NIAAA portal. Dr. Mekia Troy, thanks so much for spending time with us. And like I said, all the best with the rest of your fall season.
Thank you.
For listeners, we do this every single week, and we upload the Zoom recordings to the Educational AD Podcast YouTube channel. As always, we appreciate you listening. Come back next week for another great, tip from the doctor, and just about every day for new content on the Educational AD Podcast. We'll see you next time. Boy, another great episode from Dr. Mekia Troy. Before we go, we want to shout out to our sponsors because they are all products that I used as an AD. Athletic Surveys by LifeTrack. If you're not using a survey to take the pulse of your parents or student athletes, you're really missing out. Go to athleticsurveys.com to get started. As a football coach, I used Huddle for years, and it was just fantastic. As an athletic director, we were a Huddle school. Go to huddle.com to get started. VitalSignsWallOfFame.com. Go to their website. Check out their great products. When you're ready to order, mention the podcast. They'll give you a nice discount. That's VitalSignsWallOfFame.com. If you're looking for a fundraiser, stop looking. Snap Raise is hands down the best fundraiser out there. It's part of the Snap Mobile group. Go to snapraise.com. Check out their entire suite. We want to say thanks to Gipper, the official social media graphics solution for the podcast. If you're not using social media to help promote your athletes or your teams, you're really missing out. Go to Gipper.com to get started. We want to thank Home Campus. As an athletic director, I used Home Campus every single day, and it was just fantastic. And the Home Campus people were great too. Go to homecampus.com to get started. Sideline Interactive indoor score tables and video boards. Go to sidelineinteractive.com, schedule a live web demo, see their products in action. And Hometown Ticketing. It's the leading digital ticketing provider to schools and colleges. I don't think I need to say anything more. It's hometownticketing.com. Thanks again for tuning in. We'll see you next week on our weekly series featuring Dr. Mekia Troy from Creekside High School in Georgia. Have a great day.